Yeah, today we're going to be playing some Modern, running Jeffrey Carr's Mono Red Arclight Phoenix deck through the Gauntlet. At the most recent Team Constructed Open, he was in the Modern seat, and while I was doing coverage, I learned at some point that he was undefeated. His teammates said that he went 16-0, including a win in the finals against Ryan Overturf, whose team eventually overtook them.
Yeah, super impressive to just run through the tournament with an archetype that we've seen a bit before, but he obviously updated it for Ravnica Allegiance. Jeffrey also took second at the standard Modern Open Individual in Baltimore in December with Mono Red Phoenix. That version had some Tormenting Voices as additional discard outlets. Wasn't as lean. Had 4 copies of Bedlam Reveler, but now with Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics, the deck can really lower the curve. We have 4 copies of Gut Shot in order to enable Light Up the Stage, and then along with Manamorphose, you have so many free spells that you want a lot more prowess creatures. So it adds Soulscar Mage in addition to Monastery Swiftspear. So the deck can really, with a double or triple creature start on turn 3, you can be attacking with 2 5/6s, 6 7s, maybe even bigger. The deck has a lot of explosive potential outside of even its Arclight Phoenix draws. And then if you spend too many of your resources shutting down the Arclight Phoenix angle or this Prowess angle, it just turns into a burn deck.
Yeah, and that honestly is the most appealing aspect of this deck, because you have Lava Spike, Lightning Bolt, and Skewer the Critics, as well as Gut Shot and Monastery Swiftspear. You have this package that doesn't actually need Arclight Phoenix to win, and that means that there's no real one aspect of the deck that can be targeted with sideboard hate. Like normally something like Surgical Extraction can shut down Arclight Phoenix and the decks that kind of revolve around it. This deck has 4 Arclight Phoenix and 4 Faithless Looting, and that's the only Arclight Phoenix part of the deck. The rest is literally just 1 mana prowess creatures, burn spells, and a couple of Bedlam Revelers.
Yeah, so that's similar to now how the Is It Phoenix decks ended up being built. Now they've both moved away from Fiery Tempers and other ways to get value out of discard.
Right.
And sort of weaker cards to give you more discard effects. You don't really need them. You know, sometimes you draw Arclight Phoenix and have to cast it for 4 mana. Sometimes you draw Faithless Looting and have to hold it for a bit and discard some lands. But both of those modes are serviceable, and when you draw them together, they're really good.
Yeah, so the thing about this deck is that there are draws that can feel a bit schizophrenic at times. You know, you draw 1 or 2 Arclight Phoenixes and no Faithless Looting, you're kind of resigned to casting them. In the same vein, if you draw Faithless Looting into Arclight Phoenix, you're losing cards and you don't really have a lot of synergy. But when you draw both together, it's fairly explosive, and sometimes Faithless Looting is just good enough on its own, letting you discard extra lands so that you don't flood out, while also triggering your 1-drop prowess creatures. So
yeah, can also fill your graveyard for Bedlam Reveler. There are still 2 copies there to give you a little bit of push in the late game, but I like trimming down there because the card is so awkward in multiples. You're always going to discard the extra ones to the first one, so 2 sounds like a reasonable number, and the deck just looks a lot more streamlined than it was, and Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics do a really good job of just taking over the spots that were held by mediocre cards like Desperate Ritual or Tormenting Voice or what have you.
Actually, personally, I quite like the versions that played Desperate Ritual, mostly because they enabled really ridiculous sideboard starts featuring turn 2 Blood Moon, and that, in a lot of respects, was a way for you to just steal games against decks by playing a Blood Moon on turn 2 before they could really get fetch land set up and protect themselves from it. With that said, though, the slant of this deck going way more low to the ground, aggressive, 1 mana spells, Live the Stage, Skewer the Critics, it just feels so powerful sometimes. And we're going to be running it through the Gauntlet today to see if this deck is the real deal. The version I'm using is actually Jeffrey Carr's updated list from his article yesterday on Star City Games. If you want to check that article out at some point while we're on break or after the video itself, feel free. Jeffrey's got a lot of insight into the archetype, and I've already read it.
Yeah, you know? I read through it yesterday. He's been working on the deck for months, so definitely the person you want to go to. We're going to be running it against 3 of the more popular decks in the format. First up, we got Grixis Death Shadow. Mm-hmm. This is currently the #1 deck on MPG Goldfish, a deck that I think is very well positioned. Maybe not quite as good as its proponents like to make it out to be. They're a little bombastic in their statements about the deck.
They're also just vocal, and the results don't really back them up. So,
a nice disruption-heavy deck. We got Surgicals in the sideboard to handle Arclight Phoenix. We got good early removal to deal with the 1-drops, and then some discard spells and Stubborn Denials to break up the burn plan. So it should function similarly to the Izzet Phoenix matchup, which I think is pretty good up for the Shadow side, though I have to be a lot more careful of my life total because this version of the deck can really do a lot of damage in one turn as early as turn 3. So you're going to see me be really careful with the way I fetch and use things like Street Wraith and that aspect of the deck. And it's always been tricky with Death Shadow, but particularly important in this matchup.
Yeah, and from my side of things, you're going to see me being a little more cautious with my burn spells in this matchup because the more burn I just kind of throw at Ross's face willy-nilly, the quicker he can get large Death Shadows onto the battlefield and not only use them to pressure my life total, he can combine those with things like Teamer Battle Rage to just kill me in one fell swoop, or he can just enable Stubborn Denial, which could be really problematic for me once the game starts going. So I'm going to be putting emphasis on building a battlefield before I put an emphasis on throwing damage at Ross's face. But at the same time, if I have a draw that lets me go burn, turn 2 Phoenix or something like that, I'm going to take it. And I'm going to hope that it's good enough and I can race Ross before that Death Shadow is able to kill me. Yeah,
it's definitely a sort of contextual decision as to if you want to push early or not. I know playing the burn side of this matchup, it's often the case that you want to set up a turn where you have 2 instants in your hand, deal them 6 or 7 points on the end step, untap, deal them another 6 or 7, and try to end the game to one fell swoop. Your burn spells are sorcery speed. Secure the Critics, Lava Spike. One of them is instant speed, but mostly sorcery speed. So that's going to be tougher for you also with Prowess. But, the Prowess creatures can set up one big turn where you just deal 10 to 15 points. So
no, I agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love this deck. The 1-drop creatures, 8 of them having Prowess, just makes it feel like you're playing a different deck than everybody else sometimes. Every gut shot you play, Manamorphose you play, you're dealing your opponent 1, 2, sometimes 3 extra points of damage just by playing these really efficient 1-mana creatures. And there is one thing I want to add about this deck is that I'm not actually sure the Skewer the Critics is a card that should be in the deck. There are times that have come up, like quite a few actually, where I actually just get stuck with a 3-mana Skewer the Critics in my hand with Prowess creatures on the battlefield, and I'm not able to cast Skewer the Critics until after I attack. And a lot of times that's just pretty mopey, and it feels like it's going against the grain. Something that I want to try is some number of mutagenic growth, and I know that you have had some success with mutagenic growth in your Izzet Phoenix deck as a way to protect your Thing in the Ice from those 4 to 5 damage removal spells.
Lightning Axe, Flame Slash, Dismember.
Right, and I think it's particularly good at protecting your 1-mana creatures from Lightning Bolt, which is gaining a lot of popularity.
Yeah, when I first put mutagenic growth in the Izzet deck, it's when I had Swift Spear still in, so you were able to protect that from Lightning Bolt early, which was also really nice. Protect even Arclight Phoenix and deal extra damage. There's a lot of bolts running around with the popularity of Phoenix decks. Shadow plays a couple bolts usually. So yeah, I like mutagenic growth a lot. I think it works really well in that deck.
Yeah, and it's actually just not bad as damage output either. For 0 mana and a Prowess creature, you effectively get to Lava Spike your opponent if your creature goes unblocked. Plus, if your opponent's able to put like a 4/4 or 5/5 in front of it, it becomes a lot easier to manage that in combat, and they can no longer freely block where they would normally be able to.
Yeah, I've definitely taken down my fair share of hollow ones with Swift Spears when I'm tapped out.
Yeah.
Still can't block.
Yeah.
Or fleece them for an extra point or 2, and that could be relevant.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started with the match. We'll take some questions after game 1. Rob, if you could pick your favorites, and if you have any real questions, make sure to @SCG Tour in the chat, and Rob will be picking his favorites. But we're just going to go ahead and start playing Magic.
Yeah, let's get it.
I guess you can already guess who the first one's going to be.
Oh, it's Hesteus. Always. All right. Odd. That's even. All right. You're on the play. I think being on the play here is actually pretty important too, but
welcome to Modern.
Yeah, that's fair. It's like pretty common in a lot of decks.
Yeah, this is a keep for sure.
All right, I'm keeping mine.
I'm gonna cycle this Street Wraith now because what I draw might inform my decisions. And let's fetch for Blood Crypt, go into 15 and Inquisition.
All right, he's going to take Faithless Looting almost assuredly because I have this Arclight Phoenix. That's one of the downsides of playing so few ways to interact with your own Arclight Phoenix. You just get in spots. Oh, sorry, you can feel free to take something.
Definitely taking the looting.
Okay.
That was a strong hand.
It is. It was a lot stronger a second ago. I mean, we still have 7 points in hand, so Ross is kind of at 8 life already, but we have to find another way to get the job done. I'm just going to say go. I'm going to try to play with these face up.
Ugh. It's Thoughtseize, Todd.
I don't think I have a response to that. I drew a Lava Spike.
I will take the Lightning Bolt.
Right.
Go to 6 or
13.
13 and pass the turn.
All right, well, that's good for me, because if he had Death Shadow, I think he would have just, like, Fetch Shot cast it, maybe. Maybe not. Go to 10, make a 3/3, and then I just go Gut Shot, skewer it. Nah, probably not.
You're up.
I'm thinking. Like,
Yeah,
I kind of want
to...
Oh, yeah, I don't really have a reason.
Yeah, I don't think you want to Gut Shot me on your end step.
So if I go Spike Skewer and put him to 7, next turn, if I draw land, I can go Faithless Looting, Pitch Phoenix, and then that's not quite enough. I just don't want him to have a big Death Shadow, and I think maybe he's trying to not play it into a burn spell, so I'm just going to say go.
Pass.
Alright, Faithless Looting. I'm sure this is going to get hit with a Stubborn, but we're going to try. Okay, draw 2.
Yep.
We're going to pitch Phoenix, Phoenix. Then we're going to double Gut Shot you. I go to 16, you go to 11. Bring back both Phoenix and attack for 6.
Fetch to 10. Get Swamp.
Okay,
And push them both.
that's fine.
This is not going very well. We have failed to draw a threat here, and now it's going to be pretty easy for Todd to recur these Phoenixes. He's already 2/3 of the way there.
Right.
Just needs one more 1-mana spell.
And with 6 damage, putting Ross to 4 shouldn't be that difficult to close things out from here, as long as he doesn't play Death Shadow and have like a really good turn next turn.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to be dead.
And because of this matchup, most of the games go pretty quick. We're going to try to play more than 3 games of this particular matchup, especially post-board. So we might do like 2 pre and 3 post if we have the time. All right, so I'll draw for turn. Spike you.
7.
I'm going to light up a stage.
Yep.
All right, so top 2. We have a light up the stage and a Soul Scar Mage. We'll play the other light up the stage. And that's going to be 3 spells here. Digging for a land, but we have 3 mana, so we can cast all 3 of these next turn. I'm going to get back these 2 and attack for 6. Have you gone down to 6? He's going to push 1.
I'm just dead. I
Go
got
down
a
to
Battle
3.
Rage in my hand. Todd just has a bunch of 3 damage burn spells, and it just drew a bunch of removal there. It was not good.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about Death Shadow in this matchup. You have to be aware of your role, and you need to be able to find some piece of pressure to go along with those things like Fatal Push, because Fatal Pushing a Phoenix is not the route to victory.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw there how easy it was for me to return, both of them over the course of 2 turns. Obviously, having the second Gut Shot was quite good in giving that burst, but even if I just wait until the next turn and go play 3 spells, Ross has to deal with those, and then next turn I get to probably play 3 spells again because I found light up the stage and light up the stage.
Yep.
All right, couple questions while we're shuffling up. We're not going to take a break till after game 2.
All right. So the first one for Histeus. Do you have any modern decks you like to test against? Not because they're a big part of the meta game, but because you know that you'll see them at tournaments.
Honestly, I don't like testing against any one modern deck. If I'm going to play modern, I'm usually going to be playing it on Magic Online in a tournament. And I do that because a lot of the play patterns in modern are just not super interesting, like they're not super complicated, and a lot of the decks are so linear that like playing a best of 5 or a best of 10 set against these particular decks, to me it feels a lot like you're just wasting time. It matters way more on how your deck functions than how other decks function against you, in my opinion. And I would much rather spend that time learning things about my own deck rather than learning about one specific matchup, because you're not really going to play more than any one particular matchup more than 2 or 3 times in an open.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. Certainly relative to standard, that's the way you want to prepare in modern, and you'd rather sort of learn the ins and outs of your deck. Because often in the matchup in modern is less about how you're tactically approaching it and more about how you're strategically approaching things, whereas standard is a little bit more tactics intensive, and you get to learn the tactics when you play specific games against them, but would you learn the strategy by actually just understanding and learning your own deck. Right. This is a similar hand to what I had in game 1, but worse. I just don't have a threat, don't really have ways to dig towards it, but this hand also has a million lands, so I'm going to...
All right, couple more while Ross is mulliganing.
Yeah, we had one from King of Games. Why has Surgical gotten so popular? I know, Ross, you're playing 2 in your Is It Phoenix deck later in the main deck.
Well, free spells are very, like, I actually think Surgical Extraction is kind of long overdue to be one of the free spells in the Arclight Phoenix decks. I think in the mirror matches, it is the way that you get the leg up, because once you get Phoenix staring at Phoenix, it becomes this weird stalemate where whoever attacks first is probably going to lose, because the other person gets to bring back all their Phoenixes and attack after the first big initial combat step. So what you're going to have is a lot of Phoenixes staring at Phoenixes, and if you're able to steal your opponents, odds are you're going to be ahead on the battlefield and in the air. Ross's deck in particular really puts an emphasis on those free spells because of Thing in the Ice, as well as Arclight Phoenix. And there's just a bunch of decks that just use the graveyard. And if you have a card that interacts in a weird way with the graveyard, sometimes you just steal the game outright.
Yeah, Arclight Phoenix decks, Is It Phoenix in particular, and Dredge are 2 of the most popular decks in the format. So, and there's plenty of decks that care about cheap spells, whether they have Snapcaster Mage or Thing in the Ice, what have you. So Surgical Extraction just becomes a very natural card to have. We saw a lot more like Rest in Pieces, Leyline of the Void kind of cards when Ironworks was around, although Surgical was still a big thing. But now, like those Rest in Peace Leyline cards we learned are not good against Is It Phoenix, so the graveyard hate of choice is Surgical.
Yep. All right, so Ross, you're on 6. How's that 6er?
Awkward, but a keep.
Okay, you're gonna take a scry. I'm gonna keep my 7.
I do get to scry. Actually, I kind of like that.
All right, nice.
Okay, I'll go to 18 and draw it and play an island and pass the turn.
All right, draw for turn. And island is a pretty good sign for me here, so we're just gonna Swiss Sphere beat down, put him to 17.
17.
We have a fairly aggressive start here.
Scour myself.
Mm-hmm. Hitting Blood Crypt. Hope you have 2. Blood Crypt pairs quite well with Island in this deck.
Yep. There are 2 Blood Crypts in this deck, though, so we're good.
The old versions that I used to play had 3 Water Grave, 1 Blood Crypt, 1 Steam Vents. That's why I brought it up. Fetching down to 14? Or are you going to get a swamp?
I'll go to 16. Get a swamp and play a Gurmag Angler.
That's pretty good.
Pass the turn.
All right, we are just going to play 2 more Swiss Spears and say go. And then we're going to go for our big turn next turn.
Okay.
Now, depending on what Ross does here, we may, if we hit a land, we're going to do some pretty busted stuff. If we don't hit a land, we might do some okay stuff.
Let's start with a Thoughtseize.
All right, so you're going to go to 14. I got Bolt, Light Up the Sage, Looting, Bedlam Reveler.
I will take the Lightning Bolt, I think.
Okay.
Just to protect the card in my hand. That's... you have a Looting, though?
I do. If you want to take your time on it, we can take a question while you're thinking. This is a tough turn for you.
Yeah, this is tough. I feel like I screwed up playing the island on turn 1, and I think I might have been a little too conservative with my life total too. Kind of wish I'd shocked last turn. I could get to 10, although getting to 10 actually doesn't do a whole lot. No, I'll take the lightning bolt. I think I just have to hope things turn out well with this shadow. We'll go to 12 and play a 1/1.
Okay.
Pass the turn.
Alrighty.
Todd doesn't find another bolt or a gut shot off his 3 draws here. Then it's really hard for him to attack.
Alright, triggers.
Yep. So we get 1 trigger.
This is actually quite hard. Kind of just want to discard Bedlam Reveler. The thing is, if I can discard these 2, go land, Lava Spike, put Roth to 6, and have all these be 4, attack with all these, but then these 2 will be able to eat these 2. I can also discard these 2, go Spike, light up the stage, but I can't really play another thing. But if I hit a gut shot, then this is no longer viable. And a gut shot to the face, he was actually, no, he'd be at less life. So, all right, let's just do that. Whatever. Oh wait. But I mean, Bedlam Reveler in a few turns might actually be good. So maybe I just go discard Spike, Spike. And just push closer to Bedlam Reveler, because if I go for a big damage turn here, I'm going to be in quite a bit of trouble. I mean, I could just... So you know Reveler, I'm sorry.
No worries.
It's just pretty hard.
I know your entire hand at this point, but...
Yeah. All right, if you were in my shoes, not knowing what's in your hand, what would you do? Because this is... Honestly, this is really tough. Like, my gut says, land Spike, Spike, knock you down to 2 life, as long as you don't have a Stubborn Denial, and then just try to peel a burn spell off the top. But that literally just leaves me with nothing. So, and I don't really feel like I need to shove all in. Like, right now you have 6 power, this isn't that big, and the more damage you deal to yourself, the better it's going to be for me in the long run, right? So,
yeah.
So I think maybe it should be like...
Could also discard land, Spike, and just say go, and leave yourself with as much card advantage as possible.
Right, but I'm not that close to play Bedlam Reveler. I only have 3 in the yard. So if I just discard these 2...
You'll get to 5 the next turn.
Or discard these 2...
Like if you discard land, Spike, you'll be able to Spike Light next turn, then the following turn, like, do some other stuff, and then have Reveler.
That's fair. Okay, we'll do that. All right, so you know these 2.
Yeah.
Technically. Okay. And I'll just say go. Because even if we attack with all 3 of these, even though the Death Shadow is currently a 1/1, the way that Death Shadow works is he could actually block these 2. He'll take 2 damage down to 10, and then after damage, before this will die, it actually becomes a 3/3. So,
okay, I'll snap the Thoughtseize.
Okay.
And that's going to bring me to 10.
Stage or Bedlam?
I mean, I'm thinking about just taking Lava Spike.
Oh, that's fair too, yeah. All right, so you're going to be at 10.
Yeah. The worst case scenario, you draw Gut Shot or another Spike.
Or Manamorphose.
Yeah.
If you take this, I can draw Manamorphose and the land Bedlam Reveler. But seems really low.
Be pretty good to you. I do think I should take the Spike, because I think that's what lets me start attacking here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think I have to wait 1 more turn to attack. Yeah. Because Shadow's only a 3/3. Shadow is a 4/4, I'd attack with it.
Okay, your turn. And this is why the disruption package of like Thoughtseize and stuff is actually not bad against this deck. While we have a lot of burn spells, we're kind of incentivized to try to play a slightly longer game.
Bubble myself.
Sure.
Oh, that one's not so good. Attack. Push.
Wow, you're not going to play around an instant? If I had Gutshot here, you'd be screwed. All right, I'm not going to do that. I'll take it.
I just assume that if you drew any instant, you were casting it.
That's
like
fair.
Manamorphose.
No, that's fair. That's a really bad bluff.
Yeah, you
All right,
cast
I'm going to take the damage. I'm going to go to 8. Or take 8 down to 10. Down
go
to
to
12.
12. Okay, pass the turn, upkeep, draw off bauble. Block one of them.
Okay.
4 damage. Push an unblocked one.
Okay.
No effects.
Okay.
I go to 9.
And this is why I hate Skewer the Critics. If this was literally any other card, I would be in significantly better shape right now.
Skewer used to be Rift Bolt in the old list, and that would be very good here.
No, it wouldn't. You're right. All right, so we're going to light the stage.
Yep. Seen a little awkward play here between Prowess and Spectacle. Classic light up the stage into Phoenix.
Yeah. This game is not going great. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the yard. We skewer you down to 7. You attack for 11 at the moment. So I just have to say go. Or no, I don't. I'm just gonna gamble. I think I'm gonna lose anyway. So put you down to 7.
6.
Wait, I had you at 10. Oh, I hit you for 1 down 9. No, that's actually.
So that makes it lethal.
It does lethal, so I can't do this.
Okay, so you're 9. Well, I have Fetch Shock anyway, so.
Okay, well, I'm dead.
Should probably looting first to dig towards a Stubborn Denial, but whatever.
All right, well, my draw just not really cooperating there after getting the Faithless Looting hit with the Thoughtseize, as well as the Lava Spike taken with the light up the stage. I don't know. That was a pretty weird spot. I think I should have discarded Bedlam Reveler and just went Spike, light up the stage, land, and then that would have put me in a spot where I have 2 cards kind of floating that I can cast next turn, but my hand is not vulnerable to discard anymore.
Yeah.
And if you have another discard spell on the following turn, no matter what it is, you kind of just make my hand fall apart. And you saw I had light up the stage, Bedlam Reveler, 2 lands, and I just couldn't do anything. The 3rd land would have let me flash back. Faithless Looting next turn if my light up the stage was really bad, and yada yada. So
it's definitely a tough spot there for you. I thought because you weren't really getting through a ton with any of the other plays, that you'd rather just keep both the card advantage spells and try to power through.
Yeah.
But that just left you more vulnerable to Thoughtseize.
Yep, I'm not sure. Anyway, we're going to prepare for sideboarding here for game 3 of 5. And if you have any questions, make sure to add SCG Tour in the chat. Rob's going to be picking his favorites and asking them after we get done doing sideboarding. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're here for sideboarding. From my side of things, Skewer the Critics is a card that I kind of don't want to have in the deck anymore anyway. So I'm going to be seeing how the deck feels without it. Maybe I'm a little less explosive as I'm trying to close out games, so losing it might actually become more apparent on why it should be in the deck. So I'm going to be testing that out as the card I side out. Gutshot would normally be a card that I side out here just because it doesn't really kill anything, but the way that it enables light up the stage, Arclight Phoenix, and things like that, I feel like it's such a big part of the deck. Like you saw in game 1, without Gutshot, I might have lost that game just because I was going to be a full turn slower than normal, and that's why Gutshot's in the deck to begin with. It's just a free spell to help trigger all these things. Now, with that said, after sideboard, a lot of decks are going to have Surgical Extraction, so Phoenix should be a much smaller part of your deck, or one you don't rely on as much. So we're going to be trying to take all that into consideration here. We're going to be bringing in some Blood Moons as a way to shut Ross off of having a lot of excess mana. He's going to be fetch shocking quite a bit, and Blood Moon might just steal a game, but at the same time, he functions on a lot of draws that only have 1 or 2 land, and he can fetch Island Swamp pretty easily, especially if he expects Blood Moon. And then 1 Dismember for the Gurmag Angler. So
that said, if I do prioritize basics in order to play around Blood Moon, it could mean that I'm slowing down my game plan of getting Death Shadow on the battlefield by 2 or 3 turns, especially because I'm going to be treating this matchup similar to Burn, except I also want Surgical Extraction to answer the Phoenix angle, and I'm cutting a lot of the ways that deal damage to myself because I don't want to draw them late when I'm trying to survive a flurry of burn spells. So we're cutting these Dismembers as the worst removal spell. It is our answer to Bedlam Reveler, so we're a little weak to that card at this point. But I think by the time Todd is reveling, like, I'm going to have bigger creatures in the battlefield. But maybe we'll bring in a Dismember for game 3, and then I'm cutting Street Wraith. And I don't think we can have Street Wraith and Surgical in our deck at the same time. Just too many free shocks to give out. And then our better removal spell, Lightning Bolt, and then Collective Brutality, a card that is excellent against burn, but also pretty good here. If Todd doesn't have an instant, it'll take care of any of the prowess creatures and probably take a card out of Todd's hand and also kill a Phoenix. So
Yeah.
Matches up pretty well against this deck as well.
All right, take some questions while Ross is shuffling it.
Yeah, we got another one from Estes here. So, what matchups are the ley line for if not for the deck playing 8 discard spells?
Well, you can check that out in Jeffrey Carr's article on StarCGames.com premium side. Make sure to subscribe to StarCGames.com premium today. Now, his article came out yesterday. He talked a bit about Dragon's Claw was originally in his sideboard, and it was there for burn and the mirror, and he found that Leyline gave him very similar protection from things like the mirror and burn, but also just gave you some protection from weird combo decks and things like that. So
Storm.
But, yeah, if you want to get the full breakdown, just make sure you check out that article. It's going to be a pretty important one if you want to play this deck. Yeah.
I'm generally not a fan of Leyline of Sanctity as a card to quote answer discard spells because you're down a card when you put it on the battlefield. So it's just like they thought seized whatever that card was, and they didn't have to spend any mana doing it. And so what is it really accomplishing?
No, it's not really for discard spells.
Yeah.
It's mostly for weirdo and stuff like Storm and whatnot.
And that's the card at its best. When you draw it late in the game and it does nothing in your hand and they've already thought seized you, then it's like you're down 2 cards. So
right. Any more?
Yeah, we got one more from Bob the Destroyer. With Phoenix decks starting to take over Modern for now, do you think that the Martyr decks are a decent counter? How do you believe the matchup is?
I think the Martyr is very well positioned right now. It's also an underrated deck in terms of just power level.
Yeah, before Phoenix became like a really big deal, it actually won a Magic Online PTQ like a few months back, and no one really talked about it, but it was like Hallowed Burials and Ranger Vios and all that, all the normal stuff, but just grinded people out like a lot. I think someone told me that they went back and watched some of the replays, and they won multiple matches by timing their opponent out. And they would have won anyway. Like they have hundreds, like over 100 life or whatever, and like eventually they're just gonna have enough creatures to overwhelm their opponent, and they can never be decked because they have the land that like lets them shuffle the white things back on the bottom.
Mistfill Plains.
Mistfill Plains, and so I mean I think the deck's got legs for sure.
Yeah, it's good against is it Phoenix? It's good against Dredge. It's good against Burn.
Yeah.
So you're talking 3 of the 4 most popular decks in the format probably, and it is quite good against all of them. It is incredibly weak to Tron, but Tron is at a nadir right now. Not a lot of that deck around, so that's also good to have one of your worst matchups not show up as often. I think you're pretty good against like the Primeval Titan decks because they're just so threat light, and it's hard for them to really kill you once you're at 40, 50, 60 life. And you have a bunch of ways to answer Stray Valakuts. They play a bunch of Ghost Quarters and Field of Ruins. I actually tested that deck about a year ago, and it had Teferi not been printed. Like the control matchups used to be good, but the deck struggles at answering Teferi. Teferi just trumps whatever you're doing, goes over the top of the grindy card advantage aspect of the deck.
Yeah, and any way you would have to answer it, like Oblivion Ring or something like that, like they just have 4 cryptic commands that at some point they can bounce, draw, get their Planeswalker back, and then protect it very easily.
So that was a problem, but there's fewer control decks around. I played against that deck twice at the last Team Open, which was frustrating to say the least. I've managed to steal one of them. I actually got them with Blood Moon.
Nice.
They only had 1 basic. The old Blood Moon against the mono white deck. But I think that's a deck that if you really want to be ahead of the metagame and that you kind of like that deck, that's a sort of a tier 2 deck that should be getting more popular because it is super well positioned.
All right, let's take a look at these openers.
On the play here.
Yeah, I have a double Phoenix hand, but no Faithless Looting. I think I'm going to keep it for science to see if my deck can function without drawing Faithless Looting. Because I kind of want to just see if casting Arclight Phoenix is okay. So,
well,
your
my
hand
hand's
all right?
good. I'm going to keep it.
All right, turn on Soulscar, baby. Suppose if I draw a Faithless Looting, Ross is dead. So that's always good.
I'm going to bobble you. That's fine.
Show the camera.
Because my plan is to Inquisition this turn.
Okay.
I'm going to get a Blood Crypt to go to
17.
17.
Actually, Dismember might be pretty important here, but I guess it depends on what my top card is. Is it Faithless Looting?
It is not.
Rats.
Yeah, I think I have to take that Dismember.
Okay.
Actually, do I?
I don't know. Do you?
Maybe I can just... I think I can wait on it. Yeah, let's take the Manamorphose and pass the turn.
I guess Ross knows what this one
Yep.
is, so y'all get to know too.
I get to draw a card on your upkeep, but...
Yeah. You're at 16. You draw 2. Your turn.
That was not great. So I'm at 16, you're at 20.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's hunky-dory.
I'm looking for a Faithless Looting. So this is actually why I actually really like Jeffrey Carr's original list of the deck featuring Tormenting Voice and stuff. I like having a few more ways to interact with Arclight Phoenix, and Light Up the Stage, while powerful, has a bit of negative synergy with those types of cards. Obviously, it's super good with all the burn stuff, so it's a give and take.
Okay, those are good. Top.
Okay, my turn.
Yep.
All right, attack for 1.
15.
Sure, go.
Inquisition you. Take the Dismember. Go to 13 and play a Gurmag Angler.
Okay,
Pass the turn.
attack you for 3.
I'm at 10.
Go. Now, I could have actually just gone attack with this. If he blocks, I bolt, and then it shrinks it down enough where I actually eat it. But I want to just go ahead and cast Phoenix and get on the battlefield. 15 to 10. All right, you got a 3/3.
You can go.
Now, he might have Stubborn now or something to take care of it. So I'm just going to play another Phoenix.
Sure.
And now, I have to decide, do I want to play defense? Or do I want to just go for the kill? And I don't know. So he can potentially fetch Shock himself down to 7, effectively 1, and that makes his Death Shadow 12/12. So if he has a removal, if I attack with both and he has a removal spell for Soulscar Mage, I die. So I can also just hold back both, threaten a double block Gurmag, or just chomp. But the more I chomp, I mean, I could turn on Surgical Extraction if he has that in his hand. It's pretty tough. I can also just attack with 1, but that feels real bad. Yeah, attack.
Okay. You were dead regardless of what you did.
Oh, cool, thanks. So what happens if I don't attack?
I play Snapcaster Mage blind. I can get myself to 4 life, so this is a 9/9. And then
So
I
that's
have 18 here, and if you block these 2, you only soak 2.
16. Yeah, fine. Yeah, Battle Rage is quite good against me. Now, if I don't play the Phoenix, number 2, and I just go bolt this, he fetches down to what?
I've fetched
However much he wants. You know, it does shrink it by 3 because of Soulscar, but I still think I'm going to lose eventually.
You would be exactly dead because you would take 3 away from me instead of 2 by blocking with the Phoenix.
Sure.
And I had +1, so I do to -1, so you'd still be exactly dead.
Okay. Question or two while we're doing
I
game
guess you
4.
could. I guess you could have bolted on your own turn and then had a 2/3 blocker and survived at 1 life.
Sure. You bolted on your turn.
Question
my
from
turn,
Primetime Tony. If you were playing an IQ or some other event this week, what would you play in Modern?
In Modern, I would be playing some form of Arclight Phoenix deck for sure. Ross's deck is more tried and true, has gone through the ringer more than once and put Ross in the finals more than once in opens. So I'm just going to say probably just play Ross's Izzet version, whatever he thinks is the best one. He can't win in Standard. Might as well just play his Modern deck because that's where he's getting all his points from.
I have played 7 tournaments with this at Phoenix. I have top 8'd 4 of them.
Yeah. Made the finals twice with a win.
Finals once.
Team finals. Oh,
No,
wait.
we lost in the quarters.
Oh.
I lost in the semis. The other one.
Okay.
Also, somewhat similarly related to that, we had a question from Mavo Ricky. Would you recommend a Phoenix deck for someone new to Modern?
Sure.
I mean, if you're new to Magic, no. If you're new to Modern, sure. If all you've played is like Standard or whatever, and if you've cast the card Op before, I think you can play the Phoenix deck, right? Like Phoenix was an archetype in Standard last season, and it's still around. It's just not as good as the Izzet Drake's deck, I don't think. So, I mean, I think you could very easily play it. Like, you just have to remember to trigger your thing in the ice, you know? Like, don't just cast Faithless Looting willy-nilly if you don't have to. Anyway, my hand's great. I'm keeping.
My hand is so close to being good.
We need a good draw off the top.
I need another land.
You only have one?
I only have one. But I've got some disruption. I'll try it.
All right, we're going to lead off here with Soulscar over Swiftspear, because if he has a removal spell for this, Swiftspear can actually enable light up the stage or something later on if we need.
I'm going to get a Blood Crypt and bolt the Soulscar Mage.
Okay, 17.
You can go.
All right, check you for 1.
16.
Your turn. I don't think that this matchup is particularly good for Mono Red Phoenix. While I do think Burn in general is okay against Death Shadow, this deck is a little more wonky at times. When you don't draw the good parts of Arclight Phoenix or the good parts of the Burn deck, like things can kind of go wrong, and the Death Shadow deck can kind of lead you down the wrong path with how they sequence their discard spells. Have you at 15?
I'm going to go to 13.
Okay.
Get Watery Grave. Brutality. Duress and -2/-2. No gut shot?
No.
Oh, take that. Dismember.
Okay.
I think I'm taking Dismember.
That's fine. I'm going to draw a land and Manamorphose into Faithless Looting.
That's fine.
Crap. All right, go. Kept the one lander with quite a bit to do with 1 mana. I don't really just want to Lava Spike because it's my only way to turn on light at the stage at the moment. What you got, bro?
Okay. Fetch to 12.
Okay.
I'll just go to 10.
Okay. 3 Death Shadow.
Get 2 Death Shadows and an Angler.
Great. Okay.
Get another Watery Grave, I guess. You can go.
All right, we drew the land. A bit late, but we're going to try. Manamorphose, red.
Yep.
Spike you.
That's 7.
Light up the stage for Simian Spirit Guide. No, that doesn't work. I'm dead. We need to draw Faithless Looting off of it, and we didn't. And even if we did, I think we still had to hit Phoenix. Shut up. Okay, this match is bad. We're not going to play 5. We played 4. That's all we need to play.
Still had all this.
A lot of the people who play Grixis Shadow are under the inclination, as well as Ross himself, that Phoenix decks are not particularly favored against Death Shadow. And the way that this deck works, I think it's a bit too one-dimensional with all the burn spells. And, you know, if you're not killing your opponent, like, burn spells aren't that big of a problem for Death Shadow. They can kind of manage their own life total however they want. Once they have more information from their discard spells, playing, you know, multiple copies of Stubborn Denial is also pretty good against this deck. And cards like Inquisition just become so important when they're able to take Faithless Looting when you have an Arclight draw, light up the stage when you're kind of sitting on, like, you know, not a whole lot of action. And if you can take away my 1-mana creatures from having any real impact on the game, I think that's where you're going to see the Mono Red Phoenix deck struggle. We saw every game where I had a 1-drop that survived, I would say every game where my 1-drops mattered. Like, you played a turn 2 Gurmag once, and another time you played a Gurmag and a Death Shadow on turn 2. Like, you know, I can't really do much about those types of draws.
Yeah, I think the cards line up in a similar way as they do in the Izzet Phoenix matchup, but the Izzet deck has a bunch of cantrips to be able to rebuild from having its initial hand get a hole punched out of it, whereas this deck is just hoping the top of its deck shows it the goods.
Yeah, I mean, but on top of that, though, like, you say, like, hole punched out of it, but at the same time, like, you have way fewer holes to be able to punch. With this one, we literally have 2 decks that are sandwiched together. We have a Burn deck, and we have an Arclight Phoenix deck. And on the Arclight Phoenix deck, we have Phoenix, Bedlam, Faithless Looting. And on the other side, we have Burn, Light at the Stage, 1-drops. And if you can strip part of either one of these, this part becomes nil. And then I'm all in on the other part. And that's really where the strength of discard spells in Modern lie, and the fact that every game you were able to do one or the other and really put a pounding on me with your creatures as a follow up. The only game I won was the one where you didn't draw a creature.
Yeah.
So
just very similar. You're a weaker burn deck than actual burn.
Mm-hmm.
So usually I would see your hand and just sort of take the way to make your prowess creatures or your phoenixes good or turn them online.
Yeah. And
then you would get to burn me to 6.
Right.
Because then you just had a Phoenix dead in your hand, or Reveler you didn't have time to cast, or something like that. You just didn't have enough burn to get there. Never found a Blood Moon in the post-board games to steal one, but for the most part, you were just relying on stealing a game somehow, either with my draw not coming together, or you having an excellent draw where I'm missing the early discard spell or something.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen.
And I'll say this. We are putting this Mono Red Phoenix deck through a tough gauntlet. If we wanted to put it through an easy gauntlet, we'd be playing stuff like Storm and whatever, and Tron, and I would be absolutely obliterating. We want resistance. We want to see what happens when you put adversity in front of this Mono Red Phoenix deck, because we know it's good. We just want to know how good it is and how resilient it can be in the face of a lot of this hate. That game, even if I had found the nuts with Faithless Looting and the double Phoenix or whatever, Ross just had the surgical extraction. He had me covered on all fronts. Previous game, we saw the strength of Temur Battle Rage, and even the one before that, just the discard spell, really just making my draw flounder completely. So, really good showing from the Grixis Dash Shadow deck that won the Grand Prix, and I think that's pretty common in what's going to happen in this matchup.
Yeah, I think there have been some polarizing opinions about this Grixis deck. A lot of people don't think it's that good. The people that like it really like it. I think this deck's good.
I do too.
My worst tournament showing with Izzet Phoenix is a tournament where I played Grixis Shadow 3 rounds in a row. I only got one of them.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, the deck that I'm most scared of. They just have all the right tools.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break here so we can pay the bills. We're going to get match 2 set up for y'all. We're going to be playing Mono Red Phoenix versus...
We got Humans.
So a deck that Dylan Hand's, right?
Yeah, Dylan Hand, 16th place at the Team Open. A deck that has fallen out of favor recently, but is now starting to turn back up because of the power of Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
Right.
You see successful lists back up to 4, where normally they've been trimming down to 3. The card is just so good against Izzet Phoenix. It's even solid against Dredge. It's good against Burn. And in this matchup, I'm wondering how you now having 4 Gut Shots alters that. Because Gut Shot is the cleanest answer to Thalia that we have in the format.
Right, and even though it costs 2 life and 1 mana, that's usually enough to just unlock your hand. Plus, the draws where you get to Gut Shot their 1-drop creature, whether that's Noble Hierarch or Champion of the Parish, just really knocks the wind out of their sails. So it's going to be an interesting matchup to see if the Humans deck can stand up to this swath of cheap instant sorcerers, including a bunch of these really powerful interactive spells like Gut Shot, Lightning Bolt, Skewer the Critics. But we're going to bring that to you in just a few. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for more Versus Live.